Welcome. Thank you. Commissioner Spice. I see Commissioner Spice has joined, but we cannot hear you if you can hear us. Commissioner Kuhn.
Here.
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Commissioner Spice, can you hear us now? If you wouldn't mind, if you can hear us, if you wouldn't mind putting something in the chat to let us know what you need as far as technology so we can get you connected to this meeting, that would be great. We do have a quorum, even if Commissioner Spice is unable to join. So I will let him get that worked out, and we will move to, let's see, looks like Lieutenant Hernandez, welcome. I also see Chief Musselman on the line, welcome. And Jeff and Reed and Rick, welcome. David Lemke, oh, Martin, excellent. Right, let's move into preliminary general business. That first order is public comment. At this time, I would like to welcome any members of the public that would like to address the commission for an item that is not on the agenda for this afternoon. If your item is on the agenda, please wait for public comment until I call on that, call for public comment on that particular agenda item. So please let me know, either put a C in the chat or raise your hand if you would like to address the commission for an item that is not on the agenda. All right, I have Ian Reed, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a public comment. I live on West Lynette Drive, like in the 2500 block of Lockett Park. And we have a high number of people that use this street as a cut through between, I guess, Fort Valley Road and Cheshire / is it Belmont neighborhoods. And it's particularly bad on days that the snowball traffic is backed up past Fremont, because then we get a lot of like snowball visitors on the way home trying to cut through the neighborhoods if it's backed up all the way there. But usually it's like Monday through Friday, just neighborhood traffic going high speed through here. It's an extra narrow road. It's like 25 feet wide. I've been in contact with Sergeant James at the police department. I've talked to David Lemke, Reed Miller, a couple other people I've left messages with at the city. And it's just kind of coming to a boiling point. We're new in the neighborhood and we have 3 little kids. A lot of houses in this neighborhood have flipped recently, and there's probably a good dozen kids that live on this block. And people buzz through here at like 35 miles an hour at times. And it seems like it's been like this, according to the neighbors, for at least the last 17 years. And most of the neighbors' kids have grown up and they've just kind of become complacent with it. But just wanted to see if we can get somebody to do like a traffic study or something.
All right, thank you, Ian. And we can't discuss that item right now because it's not on the agenda, but it is something that we can work with city staff to follow up on and see if it's an item that will be pulled into the agenda. So your public comment has been noted. Thank you.
Can I just add, I was told to like join this and talk to you guys by like David Lemke and Reed Miller when they came to my house and gave me a radar gun to sit outside if I wanted to and try to catch the speeders. But
well, there may be an opportunity in the future when it can, if it goes into be a formal agenda item where we can have more detail and have a broader discussion. But for public comment, just the initial introduction, we can't engage in conversation because it wasn't a public notification. So I've heard you, I've got this written down, and really appreciate you attending and providing public comment at this time.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to address the commission on an item that is not currently on the agenda? All right. Seeing and hearing none, we do not have approval of minutes. These meetings are recorded. Before I go into new business, Jeff, do we have any changes to the agenda this afternoon?
Good afternoon. Yes, we have a couple of changes. So, well, we have a couple of things that just are not quite ready, or we have still staff members. So the first two items are both not ready and not available for presentation. So we'll get back to those in April, A and B. But we are ready for C and D.
Okay. Excellent. Then moving into new business, item C, this is Linda Vista speeding concerns. And if you'll recall, we received a written communication about this from a resident off of Linda Vista prior to our last commission meeting. And Chief Musselman also spoke to us about this during public comment at our last commission, not our special commission meeting that we had earlier or in January, but in December. So with that, I'd like to turn it over. Jeff, are you giving this presentation?
I am. I'll pull it right up here.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, Linda Vista traffic calming or potential traffic calming. We did get an email and phone call from a resident on Linda Vista, kind of towards the west end of the street. They had been in contact with the police department. The police department also reached out to us. Of course, that's our first line of work is, can we get some extra enforcement in these areas? But that only goes so far, depending on the type of problems we're having out there. So that's why we're here today. So Linda Vista, here's the vicinity map. Linda Vista, this is actually tough to see Linda Vista. I have another map I'll pull up, but generally we're talking about this kind of north central. I was thinking this is the east side of town, but it's kind of central, maybe Flagstaff, but north side of town. Linda Vista is a minor collector that runs all the way across this section of the city. And let me just go ahead and pull. Switching windows is always tricky, but I have. So here is our regional plan map of the functional classifications of all the major streets in Flagstaff. So you see there's no local streets on this map, but all the roads of regional significance are on this map. So this kind of orange color is the minor collector network. Purple's the major collectors. Blue are the arterials, the minor arterials, which are the city arterials, and red is the major arterials, the ADOT routes. So this is Linda Vista. So if you're familiar with kind of Cedar Safeway area, extension of West Street, that's Linda Vista around this curve to 4th Street, to Patterson, and across the Fanning. And you'll notice this dotted line. This is in the regional plan. There's no funding necessarily today and no construction imminent by any means. But in the long range plan for the city, it shows that Linda Vista actually connects out to Caspar and potentially to that Route 66 Highway 89 intersection. So just to give everyone an idea of the area. The request came in kind of near this curve, which is also kind of the heart of a lot of the flooding concerns that we're having with Museum Fire, if you're familiar with that area. So this is the area generally that we're talking about on Linda Vista. So just wanted to give you that look. Let's see. There we go. That was easy. So there's the vicinity map. Here's an aerial photo of the area. Again, Linda Vista is a long east-west route. Lots of locals tend to use this route to avoid congestion on Lockett. There's a school on Lockett. The school on Lockett here in the mornings especially is pretty congested. And I think even if you look at a larger image of Flagstaff, it actually is a pretty common way to avoid Route 66 as well. So Linda Vista gets a lot of through traffic in addition to its collector function from these neighborhoods. But this is the link to Linda Vista. We're specifically talking about this kind of area at the west end. Here's where we did our study this summer. August of 21, set our road tubes here. You can see the 50th percentile speed was 29 and 85th to 34. The posted speed limit, like most streets in Flagstaff, is 25. And total, you can see total ADT is a little over 3,000 vehicles a day. Here's a little bit of the background. We talked about this already a little bit, but we've had a citizen complaint regarding high speeds on the road. I think we've generally verified that with the collection. The road's about 46 feet wide at the point of study, and that's pretty consistent through that west end of Linda Vista. I think it actually gets wider as you go further to the east. Designated as a minor collector, which we just looked at, and there's been 0 reported crashes in the last 5 years in this vicinity. Here's how that 46 feet lays out. We have houses fronting on this minor collector, which is not something we try to do anymore, but it is something we have historically in a number of places in Flagstaff. So these are back out driveways. And in most residential areas, we try to provide on-street parking, and we have that here. So we have a pair of 7-foot parking lanes, a pair of 5-foot bike lanes, and a pair of 11-foot travel lanes. So that's kind of how the road is split up today, which is a relatively typical cross section. We typically have 11-foot lanes on these minor collectors, so it's fairly typical. Here's the residential management score sheet out of the residential management traffic program that you're familiar with. Remember this upper section, which are the primary factors. You need to get to 20 points to keep going in the chart. You can see we reached 41 points in this particular location, and 17 points for speed, 35 points for excessive speed, and which is a big number, or well, 35 total here, which is a big number, and then another 6 points for volumes. We, on this chart, say minor collectors over 2,000 can be considered for traffic calming or start to score points in this street. So needed 20, we got to 41. And then we didn't have any elementary schools within 660 feet, no specific pedestrian generators like other kinds of schools, community centers, parks. It's low density housing, so it scored the lowest amount of points in that category. 5 points for adjacent parallel arterial or major collector within 2 blocks. We maybe could have scored 5 there, but it really doesn't matter whether we scored that 5 or not because we're way above the threshold. 3 points for the bike route, and again, 20 points in the upper section and a total of 30 points to say, yes, this road is above the threshold where we should look at traffic calming. So that's our staff recommendation at this point is, yeah, we're scoring well above 30 points. This spreadsheet, of course, was established by the Transportation Commission years ago. We've talked about updating it and reviewing it, but again, this is well above the 30 points. So our recommendation is to continue on, and that's what we have here. So consider possible engineering strategies and applicability from our guidebook. Taking a look at some different types of traffic calming. Once we've decided to move forward with that, and I think you'll concur, but we'll talk about that. We'll take a look at street geometry, and we're hoping to hear specific citizen complaints today. We have the data, we've been out there and looked at it, but it's always interesting to hear some specific complaints. Sometimes there's a certain time of day or a certain day of the week or something really specific that we can address. So looking forward to that discussion. And then our usual routine here would be to implement some sort of temporary calming device and restudy to see if it works. So with that, we've got kind of some of our usual suspects. Radar feedback signs are a potential in this area. 1, 2, maybe others. We can talk about that, but that's a potential that's relatively cost effective and pretty timely. Typically, we can get these, not in a month or 2, but pretty quick. Curb extensions are a potential for this area because we have the parking lane. Curb extensions are where you take the normal curb line and move it out. In this case, in this example, it's shown, extending out as far as the parking lane, which is what we would be able to do on Linda Vista as well. Linda Vista has the bike lanes, so It's going to not be terribly effective because the bike lane is going to buffer the travel lane from any kind of friction this curb extension may cause. So might be effective, but doesn't have a real high likelihood of effectiveness because we do have the bike lanes on Linda Vista. But does have other benefits for pedestrian visibility, slowing cars down, coming around the corners, which isn't a concern that we've heard, but it's a good thing to do. So it wouldn't hurt anything, but it may not be terribly effective at our primary concern of reducing speeds. Chicanes are an option here. So we have parking lanes. So potentially we could do curb extensions in a number of locations that are convenient, not necessarily blocking someone's only parking in front of their house, but it kind of acts like a parked car on the street 24 hours a day. Can be more effective when there isn't a bike lane. Again, the bike lane is going to buffer any kind of shifts we push onto the vehicles with striping, because often cars will kind of cut the corners if there isn't a bike present, and most of the time there isn't a bike present in a bike lane. But chicane's a possibility here, and it may be less a chicane and more just a series of curb extensions that kind of act like parked cars. Lateral shift, kind of the same thing, but maybe this includes a median. We would also need to prohibit parking because we would want to keep the bike lane. These boxes popping up. We'd want to keep the bike lanes, and again, that's going to buffer any kind of lateral shift effect, but this is a possibility as well to get rid of parking and shift the travel lanes out and around a median. These should look familiar. We've tried lots of these things. Volumes are still at a reasonable level on Linda Vista, about 3,000 cars a day, that I think we could do some form of a traffic circle. This would take the form of the other types of devices we've seen on Woodland or on University or in Plaza Vieja, or much smaller. It wouldn't look like that. This would probably look more like West and Arrowhead or something similar. But this can do this is obviously going to slow people down in the vicinity of the device and tends to break up these long sections of road where I think vehicles tend to just gradually pick up some speed. It's interesting, this aerial photo does a good job. I mean, there's actually really nice horizontal curves in this section, which is one of our built-in traffic calming devices. When we design new neighborhoods, we don't allow long straight sections of road. This already has all of that. There's actually a little bit of vertical curvature as well. But again, we know what the data is. The speeds are higher than we'd like to see, but this is a possibility. I checked in with the streets department to see if there was any projects coming, and they told me that just off the screen, there is an intersection rebuild at Linda Vista. I can't remember which street. I think it was Paradise coming down. Jerry, you probably know which one it is, but in any case, there may be some potential there to incorporate some of these devices into a project that's already happening. It's not right here where we're having the complaint, but it would break up the flow. Potentially, we don't want to break up the water flow, but we like to break up the vehicle flow. So potential opportunity there. And with that, that's my last slide. Kind of quick through them, but these are the potential options. And again, we're interested in hearing some public feedback and commissioner discussion to see what, if anything, you'd like to pursue here. That's it for me.
Thank you. Couple of questions for me, and then other commissioners, while I'm asking questions, just put a C in the chat or a Q. Let me know. So do you see many people parking on the street? I haven't when I've driven it, but I haven't been specifically looking for that at the time.
I drove it this morning early, and there was a handful of cars, but some people may have already left, but no, not a ton. I mean, there's, in this aerial photo, we can see a couple. Who knows what time of day this is, but it's not a heavily parked area with this land use.
Okay. And then when we talk about projects like this and the funding, so looking at this one, for example, the traffic circle with a cost upwards of $50,000 for one of these to be implemented. Where do these funds come from? What pot of money? And I wonder, are we balancing one pot of funds? Are you balancing one pot of funds, and is there a prioritization that needs to happen with projects as we talk about these traffic calming measures?
Yeah, we can get into that, at our next discussion. We can get into a little bit more detail, taking a look at our next discussion in April. We can look at the 5-year program, and I can kind of point out some of the locations that we can find funding for these types of projects. Traditionally, they've been relatively inexpensive, not on the $50,000 side. They've been, $5,000, $10,000, maybe $20,000. And we do have some minor transportation improvement line items that we target. And I want to say those are funded at about $50,000 per year. So it's a good question. And it's a question, so far we've been working each of these neighborhood complaints as they come in and trying to kind of work through them one at a time as they come in. You may find yourself, as we're seeing a couple of new neighborhoods every month or every other month, needing to do some prioritization. So I would welcome that discussion. But at this point, we've been able to cover these lower cost projects as they come in so far. So far, not an issue, but it's something to keep in mind for sure.
Okay. And I've got Commissioner Morley. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And those were great questions. Thanks. 2 questions. One, would we only look at doing something on the west side of Linda Vista? I assume the problems carry across the whole street in reality, but maybe maybe we don't hear as much because there's not houses facing the street in the same way. And then 2, what happens to the bike lanes in this roundabout proposal?
So traffic calming has traditionally been complaint based. So we haven't been going out looking for these problems. We can certainly expand the program as wide as the commission would like to. We can look at a map. Let's see. Yes, so your question was, the concern is here. I think maybe your question was, does it look the same here? Probably. This section is probably actually wider. It's straighter and doesn't have houses fronting it, so speeds are probably even higher. But what we typically find, and we have it posted 25, what we typically find is when houses don't front these streets, there's a lot less of a concern for speeds. So yeah, I mean, we could go any way the commission would like to go, but at this point, we're focusing on this west end of the street. There certainly could be more requests, and if we measured speeds, they're probably higher here. I let you know that someone got a hold of me today and has concerns here on Lockett, and I'm going to guess Lockett has the same profile all the way down as well. There's really no end to finding problems on our collector network in Flagstaff. So that's a good question, and I'll look for guidance from you all. I'm sorry, you had a second question, and I didn't write it down for some reason. Help me, Kate.
The bike lanes and the roundabout. Thanks for the first answer.
Yeah, so I mean, the typical way to work with bike lanes in a roundabout or a circle, and this exhibit, of course, doesn't have a picture of the bike lanes, but typically on these neighborhood mini circles on more local streets, we don't typically have bike lanes. So the bikes and the vehicles share the space. On a roundabout or even a mini roundabout, that still is an option, but typically we would provide widened sidewalks for the bikes that don't feel comfortable sharing the lane to go out and around. I'm kind of using my cursor to show that path. So that's what we would propose to do here. So with the parking lane and the width, we may be able to come up with something creative with maybe green paint that shows a route that doesn't actually get on the sidewalk, and maybe it just goes outside of the typical traveled way. I don't know that I've seen that before, but it's something we could look at and maybe experiment with the space and cost, because it does get expensive to start bumping out sidewalks, because these sidewalks are not 10 feet today and they don't have a parkway, so we don't really have any flexibility to I suspect we don't have flexibility to widen them, flexibility being additional right of way. So yeah, if we want to go with something like this, that's a design detail to work through.
Thank you.
Sure.
Right, work our way through commissioners, and then I'll do public comment for those that are eager to share. Commissioner Spice.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you. I was wondering, in terms of implementation, the radar sign could be an initial effective step down around the corner where Paradise intersects Linda Vista there, and what the implementation process would be with that, but I imagine it's much simpler than the roundabout, and see if that would be effective.
I don't know if that was for me or for,
Yeah,
for
sorry. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, I mean, if that's the way that the discussion goes, you're absolutely right. Those are much quicker and more cost effective anyways, or a cheaper entry point. And that's how we've done some of these other projects, is to implement a radar feedback sign, and then measure again and see how we've done. Definitely a possibility here.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I see another hand up, but I can't see who it is.
I had my hand up.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Kuhn. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask the same thing, was just asked, what are we going to look at a speed sign, electronic speed sign there? I mean, with the number of schools pretty close to this, I travel this road a lot. So I do see it's significant sometimes, especially on the straighter areas. So somewhere that we could see it and do it both ways. Are you capable of building a double one? They show both ways, or is that hard because they have to be facing the traffic?
Typically, we're putting them on the right side of the road.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we've always done that, but I was just wondering, because that has such a wide straight way. Okay.
Potentially, I think the equipment is all in the box. So I think we would really just be saving the post, the mounting, which isn't very expensive. Okay. So yeah. I don't know that we'd save a lot by putting them back to back, but we could certainly put them on opposite sides of the street.
Okay.
I guess I want to ask one question of commissioners. Do you agree that we should pursue traffic calming on Eastland to Vista Drive? I'm judging by the questions, the answer is yes, but I just want to confirm. So Commissioner Morley, is that a go ahead to pursue the options?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Commissioner Kuhn?
Yeah, I agree too.
Okay. And Commissioner Spice?
Thank you. I would definitely support that. I've been on that street and it needs some attention. Thank you.
Okay. And Commissioner Kraft?
Yes, I support that.
Okay, as do I. Okay, just get that order of business taken care of. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll go from commissioners. Otherwise, I'm going to go to public input, and then we can close out the discussion after that as commissioners. All right, I would like to open it up for public comment related to Eastland to Vista. Former Mayor Donaldson, I know you had your hand up. Please go ahead. Welcome. I see you are still muted.
There we go. Oop.
Oh, I heard you for a moment.
The icon is flickering back and forth. There it goes. You're unmuted now.
Mr.
Okay,
Don?
good.
Excellent.
Yes.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Transportation Committee. It sounds like you guys are going to take some action on Linda Vista. So I'll give you my comments. The traffic on East Linda Vista needs to be mediated to assist motorists in observing the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in this residential area. All driveways exit onto East Linda Vista. That's different than on the other side of 4th Street. The distance available for uninterrupted traffic flow is 0.8 miles from Cedar Avenue and West Street intersection to the North 4th Street and East Linda Vista Drive intersection. This aids motorists, school buses, construction traffic, tradesmen, and the like to exceed the posted 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. As I have discussed with Police Chief Musselman, control of traffic in this residential area should not depend on residents posting "Please slow down" or "Drive like your kid lives here" signs on their properties. Some of the residents, including myself, have motioned to speeders to slow down, only to be greeted with a single finger sign. Chief Musselman conducted a 3-week study with the city of traffic speeds in front of my home at 1325 East Linda Vista Drive. We also discussed some ideas that would still move traffic, but also provide speed mitigation at little or no cost to the city. My suggestions are a 4-way stop at Grandview and East Linda Vista Drive, a 4-way stop at North Monta Vista and East Linda Vista Drive, and a possible 3-way stop at East Rainier and East Linda Vista Drive. Placing traffic control signs at these locations would also give residents entering East Linda Vista Drive a chance to get onto East Linda Vista Drive and make East Linda Vista Drive safer for residents and their children. I have previously submitted copies of the traffic study conducted by the City of Flagstaff. Thank you for your time and your commitment to serving on this commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did receive those documents that you provided.
Great. Thank you.
Right. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to address the commission about Linda Vista traffic calming? I see Joe Koenig.
Hello, yes. My name is Joe Koenig, citizen of Flagstaff, 1520 North Fox Glen Street. My comment is, and partly also in regards to the what was done at university. And I see the score sheet that you use to determine if something needs to be done. And my concern is that there's no similar sheet to evaluate if a method is worth actually doing. And so the argument on university seemed to be, well, we did the sheet and it said we should do something, so let's do this, even though there's mixed reaction and the change in speed is only 3 miles per hour or something like that. And so what I would encourage the commission to do is to make sure that when they do these traffic calming measures, if those measures don't actually calm the traffic, then they don't proceed with them simply because they decided something needed to be done. So hopefully that's a helpful suggestion that will also help other citizens to sort of feel that there's some, there's a metric there to go based off of. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for listening to me.
Absolutely. All right. Final call for public comment on this item. Ian Reed, we do not, we record these meetings, but it doesn't record the chat. So if you'd like to make a public comment, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting if the city would consider putting in speed tables or like large speed humps along Linda Vista. It seems like it'd be a very cost-effective way to put up multiple bumps, and that would really slow vehicles down. I know I've heard that they don't like doing something like that because of maintenance on snow plows and whatnot, but coming from Alaska where there's plenty of snow plows, I know I've seen numerous speed humps in situations similar to what they're describing here. That's all.
With that, I will close public comment and go back to commissioner discussion. I'm happy to start with that. And the one thing I heard you say, Jeff, is that you'd have a chance perhaps, or transportation staff would have a chance to go out and speak with some residents along the corridor to get some feedback. And I'd be curious to get to hear those insights. I think those that live directly on the corridor, can have a lot of great ideas or observations about perhaps those certain times of day that you mentioned or certain conditions. I think that would be very helpful in determining what traffic calming measure might be preferred and accepted by the community. That's my thought. Other commissioners? And I guess that's my way of saying it this time. I certainly, I don't have a recommendation for what should be implemented. I do know that the radar feedback signs are the least obtrusive, and they do seem to work based on the other areas that we've put them in. So I think that's something that can be done soon, while some of the other measures are evaluated. Commissioner Morley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really like the idea of doing something. I am concerned, like you are, I think, about where all this funding comes from. Every month at Transportation Commission, we seem to have traffic calming that the commission supports and meets our guidelines. And I am worried about that we keep saying yes, and we don't know what the financial implications of saying yes are. But I do support, I think this is one of the more severe ones we've seen. I do support doing something. I really ultimately defer to staff, I think, as to what the details of design should look like, knowing that from a policy perspective, the community is very engaged in, wanting to see bike lane, good bike infrastructure and sidewalk infrastructure. Really defer the details to staff. And then the final comment would be Mountain Line does use this route on occasion if there's construction or flooding or other events. And so if you were to consider something like speed bumps, just ensuring we work together to make sure the buses can get through. So thank you.
Commissioner Kuhn.
Thank you again, Julie. Mayor Donaldson had a point, and I'm not into putting stop signs because it hasn't worked. But I don't think we've dealt with a stretch this long. So, I can't see that many stop signs in because we get ourselves in trouble and then you get the noise. But there are a couple places I think if the stop signs are put in strategically, that it could help on a couple of areas, and it would help the flow of the traffic from the upper Swiss Manor there too. And, they could look at that. I'm not saying where to put them. But Jeff, if you guys could, look at that situation too, if that would work, because that's a cheap way to do two things too, on adding stop signs. And we don't want to hurt you with the noise, Mayor Donaldson. Sometimes we did that on Zuni in a couple of areas, and the noise became because then people speed and go right through them. But a few less may work. But that's up to the professionals.
Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn. Commissioner Spice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, in lieu of major renovations, I'd support the radar signs. And then, on occasion, other places I've seen a police cruiser, whether there's someone in it or not, I don't know if that's a feasibility, but even parking a police car somewhere along there, may have an effective deterrent just from the visual impact. It would also let the neighborhood know that there's some action being taken. So I'm not sure if that's an option.
Thank you. I believe we have Lieutenant Hernandez and Chief Musselman here this afternoon. So if either one is maybe willing to speak to that comment. Go ahead, Chief Musselman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner. So we have done traffic enforcement up there regularly. We've put in what's called the decoy car. We'll put it up there for a couple days. Our radar trailer would set it up there. What I'm being told from Mr. Donaldson and hearing from other residents in the neighborhood is that once we pull that out of there, the speeds increase again pretty regularly. And some of this is a function of our challenges with staffing. We've had to cut our traffic unit in half due to having 16 vacancies out of 70 in patrol. So we're behind the curve in being able to find people and get them hired. And I know that's not an excuse. We're thankful that although speeds are elevated, we have seen very few collisions up in that area. I do like the idea of the speed feedback sign. I've seen some of those with strobes that the faster you're going, the brighter the strobe is, and it kind of blinds you and gets you to slow down. So I think that would be a good recommendation to start. But I just appreciate you all looking into this and pushing the issue forward. But enforcement is a part of it. But if by design we can lower speeds and make it not such an enforcement issue, I think the residents will appreciate that relief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Musselman. All right. Jeff, do you have what you need from commissioners as far as thoughts and recommendations for moving forward?
We do. Yeah. So I think, well, let me tell you what I'm thinking. We'll work on a couple of radar feedback signs, at least one in each direction, get those ordered and installed and then recounted and see where we stand and then move from there. You mentioned more feedback from the neighborhood. I was hoping to get, feedback tonight, and we got some feedback tonight. If we want to continue the discussion, what we've done, and that we haven't done this in a while because we've had HOAs in many of the neighborhoods we've been working with, but we have sent mailers in the past, created a mailing list and mailed this whatever area we decide is a good area. And then we will get more participation. If we want to have a little more detailed discussion, we can work up some concepts that are a little more specific, not just generalized, but a little more specific, and see what kind of feedback we get from the neighbors. So that would be phase 2, but it sounds like you're good with phase 1 being some radar feedback signs. So we will get working on that right away. Does that sound good? Does that sound like what you heard as well?
Yes, thank you. And I did appreciate Joe's comment about a score sheet as we move forward. And I think that's something to think about as we move forward. Perhaps not a conversation for tonight, but I think there could be some value in doing that as we see these continually at each Transportation Commission meeting, a way to manage that. Commissioner Morley.
Yeah, I like that suggestion of having an evaluation tool or best practices or something that are our go-to standards. Related, just thinking back to how this just seems prevalent across the entire community right now. I also wonder if it's worth considering some sort of media campaign around speeding in neighborhoods. We clearly have so many personal residents who are impacted by speeding through their neighborhoods, and maybe we need to humanize it or let people understand the impacts of them, because it feels worse than it's ever been in the history of Flagstaff. I don't know what's up with drivers, but I don't know that advertising always works, but just thinking through the prevalence of the problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something I would agree. We've had an awful lot of these complaints, and my theory still is that a lot of people are working from home and seeing the things that go on every day at their house. It's not the case with everybody, but that feels like people just didn't have any idea how busy the street was in front of their home. But that's my theory. But education's an interesting one. We do have a public information office that could get some basic social media stuff out if we came up with designs and messages. I've heard of, it's certainly something other cities have tried, so it's something we can look around and bring back some ideas and see what you all think is appropriate for Flagstaff messaging. So that would be a nearly free campaign, and it certainly wouldn't hurt. Be a good first step. So yeah, I'll put that on our list, see if we can pull something together for April to talk about at least.
Yeah, I think we could tie all of that in. I think that's a great suggestion, tying in a score sheet or evaluation matrix for some of these traffic calming measures, tying that in with available budget, and then a media campaign not tied to a specific location in town, but just a general conversation perhaps in April in our next meeting.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
And there's 2 more neighborhoods that are asking to be on April. So yeah.
Okay. Fair.
We'll see what we can do.
Let's do these first 2 steps that you described. Thank you very much. And Any other, I do see a comment from Chief Musselman. They do public service announcements regularly via social media. They could try and focus on this area more specifically. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you.
that. But I think we've got the first 2 steps planned for this. And thank you to public commenters. Thank you to commission for that conversation. And I would say with that, we can close out this agenda item and move to item D, which is similar. And this is Fremont Avenue speeding concerns in the Cheshire neighborhood. And Jeff, I know you've got a presentation for that. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so here's Fremont. This was also a neighborhood request that came in a little while ago, and we collected.
I don't see your screen, Jeff.
What do you see?
I see it, Madam Chair.
I see it.
I see it.
Do you see me?
I see it.
I also see you.
I'll how about I stop presenting and I'll present again just in case. Because we need you to be able to see this.
Might be my problem.
Julie has a problem.
More than one. Councilman. I'm just kidding. Oh, now I see it. Thank you. That's
Okay.
great.
It bumped back up. Good. All right. Here's Fremont. Let's just jump in. So here's our vicinity map for Fremont. Fremont is in the Cheshire neighborhood. It's actually in Linwood as well. But the piece of road, at least for now, that we're talking about is Fremont and Cheshire. Again, Cheshire is up 180 in the northwest corner of Flagstaff. Here's Fremont Boulevard. Again, this is the last traffic signal as you're leaving Flagstaff headed towards Grand Canyon or Snow Bowl. Fremont is the large collector street that comes in, and it's actually called Fremont all the way through Linwood and all the way back to where it becomes Cooper, coming back into the Cheshire neighborhood. So this is that 4-lane section. The Follow School is up here near the corner, the Cheshire Neighborhood Park. And then our particular study location is right about in here, kind of mid-block between the school and the neighborhood park. Fremont is also a minor collector. So it's that yellowish orange color on the regional plan map, but I won't pull that map up because it's all built out. There's no expansions or changes to our regional plan for this area. So it is what it is today. So citizen complaints about high speeds. The road in this location is 60 feet across at the point of study. Some of this section actually has a frontage road in addition to the 60-foot roadway. It's designated as a minor collector. It's posted at 25 miles per hour. As I mentioned, there's the neighborhood park, the Follow School, and a number of homes. For the first section of the road, the houses are sidages. There's no frontages, but then as you start to move into the neighborhood, there are people backing out onto the street. There's some frontage road. It kind of changes, but generally about 60 feet in width. We have 9 reported crashes in the last 5 years, and we have a map of those crashes coming up next. So 9 reported incidents. This is Fremont looping off the screen and back through Linwood and then becomes Cooper. So a couple of X's here, a couple single vehicles out in that more rural section. This is the 2-lane section. Up in our study area, we had a single vehicle and an angle crash. We didn't dig in. It could have been the driveway at Follow, or it could have been Brenda. I think this was Brenda Loop, but someone pulling out. We had one side swipe, probably in the same direction. So that's somebody turning into somebody going in the same direction. I don't remember exactly what the other was, but let's see what we have here. 9, 6 were single vehicles, 2 involved 2 vehicles, side swipe, and an angle, and no serious injuries. I think there was actually no injuries at all. They were all pretty minor. A lot of these single vehicles were, I think one of them was hit a curb, one of them was hit a streetlight pole, one was hit a fixed object. So anyhow, that's what we have out there for the incidents. This is the actual location where we set the hoses. Again, this is Follow School, which, like most schools in Flagstaff, backs up onto the street in a pretty good way, especially at pickup in the afternoon. the townhomes, and then the Cheshire Park here at the bottom of the screen. We counted speeds and volumes here. You'll notice there's actually a mid-block crossing as well. It's an uncontrolled intersection crossing here at Brenda Loop going over to the park. So we had lower speeds than on Linda Vista, which is interesting considering what this road looks like. It is much bigger than Linda Vista. While there is some curves, it doesn't feel nearly as confined as Linda Vista. So about 2,000 cars a day instead of 3,000, and 28 and 32 for those measurement points. Here's how the road is divided up today. So it's a 4-lane road, which is really unusual. I actually forgot that this was a 4-lane road until we started talking about it again. Rarely have 4-lane roads. This might be the only one. I really didn't think we had any more of these left. 2 5-foot bike lanes, and then looks like the road is just split up amongst a bunch of 12.5-foot travel lanes. We typically don't, and we haven't traditionally gone to a much bigger bike lane than 5 feet because people tend to park in them, because at 6 and 7 feet they become parking lanes. But we'll talk about some possibilities here as we move forward. But that's the layout of the street: 4 travel lanes and 2 bike lanes, and vehicle volumes only at 2,000 cars per day. Road was clearly built for a different purpose. My understanding, I think I'll just talk about that. My understanding is that this back section that became Linwood was anticipated to be a higher density, like Cheshire, and there may even have been additional sections of land that they thought would be developed at some point in the future. So the road was built with 4 lanes, but at 2,000 cars a day, clearly unnecessary. Let's see, keep going. Here's our score sheet. Again, we have points for speed and excessive speed, up to 28.4. Minor collector volume actually lands right about that 2,000, so it doesn't get any extra points because we didn't get to 2,200. Cut through volumes, there isn't anything going on there. This is an isolated neighborhood, and so 28 points, which exceeds the 20 that we needed to move on. Plus 2 points for different things, pedestrian generators. So we gave 2 points for the follow school and 2 points for the park. It's low density. We have a bike lane and a transit stop, and there are sidewalks continuously along this section of road. So total of 40 points, which exceeds 30 points. Again, how should we move forward? Consider possible engineering strategies and applicability from the guidebook, and then kind of our usual steps. So I'll skip through this: street geometry, specifics, and complaints. And also, these are going to look familiar again. This is a possibility here: radar feedback signs. And this is a different possibility than on Linda Vista. So because it's 4 lanes and we really only need 1 lane in each direction instead of 2, the street has the potential to stripe out those 2 center lanes and make them a gigantic 2-way left turn lane or something like that. It's 25 feet, so we'll probably have to do something creative, but there's potential there to stripe out those 2 center turn lanes. Ultimately, if the road is repaved or chip sealed, we could do a nice clean job and maybe adjust some dimensions. And as I mentioned before with Linda Vista, I checked in with the pavement maintenance folks, and this street is not on the list for this year or in the foreseeable future. So if we did do some striping changes, we would probably not want to erase or obliterate all of the old lines because that's really destructive to the pavement. So we'd probably be limited to creating this striping pattern essentially in the layout that's there today. In the future, we could do maybe buffered bike lanes and move this travel lane in a little and do a smaller median. So this has some benefits for sure, to get rid of one of those travel lanes and maybe narrow it down a bit. We probably could see a benefit here. It'd be interesting if we did. So that's what the 2-way left turn lane is. If you have a 2-way left turn lane, then you can install a pedestrian refuge island. One of the potential locations is where we have that striped crosswalk already today at the park. So pedestrian refuge island obviously helps with pedestrian crossings, breaking up that crossing into 2 distinct pieces, which is a real benefit. Narrows the width of the 2 crossings because you have the island in the middle, and then could have some speed calming effect as well. and it's scalable. You can put these just in a spot or two. Median down the whole length of the road would be amazing. This cost it would be for a single median. Certainly the length of this road, it would be really, really, really expensive. And I don't think we can recommend that. That definitely is going to be a funding issue to put a median down the whole length of Fremont. But potentially in a couple of sections, medians could be beneficial. Spread out, landscaped could be really nice. Again, if you go to a single lane, so this is shown on the 4-lane section, but if you go to a single lane, we potentially could do some sort of traffic circle. We have it shown here at Brenda Loop, just as an example. It could be in a different spot. We could pick a couple of spots along the street. Traffic calming in one spot on this length of street is not going to be effective for the whole length of street. You do have to repeat the pattern a couple of different times. And in this case, you would just, pick every other intersection or something like that, with either islands or circles or some sort of treatment like that. So that was the end of the options. And just to let you know, as Fremont transitions, this section you can see is the 4-lane section. There's actually a parking lane and 2 bike lanes and 4 travel lanes and a frontage road in this section. And then the frontage road ends and the road narrows to just a travel lane in each direction. And we received a complaint since we did the study when we had good weather. In the other section, we received another complaint in this section, and we have not yet checked speeds here to determine if this section is also a potential candidate. But just to let you know, this one, as soon as we get some warm weather, will also be something we'll be measuring. And if the speeds are elevated, we'll be bringing it forward to talk to you. And with that, that's my last slide.
All right.
Happy to answer some questions on this one.
Thank you. So let's go to commissioners, then we'll do public comment and then close it out with commissioner discussion. So Commissioner Kuhn, I see your hand up. It may have been from last time, but happy to hear your comments or questions on this one if you'd like.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Jeff, thank you. Again, because the bus is pretty familiar with this road, when you do, you get to understand where you need a couple different calming devices and make it narrow at that park, because there's a lot of, I think that neighborhood's starting to turn over. I know we have a lot of younger kids. Could you also put in, I know they're expensive, the electronic crosswalk, because, the width of that in the island and then losing perception where the kids are, that's the only thing I ask. I know they're expensive, but that's also helped to slow down when the kids come across there into the park.
It's certainly a possibility. I don't have any idea what kind of volumes of pedestrians, if that would be a good cost-effective location to install one of those. I don't think we haven't measured it. I don't think they actually will reduce speeds except when somebody pushes the button to cross. So I don't know that it could be a good use here because of the park and the neighborhood, but may not actually make a big dent or any dent in the speeding issue that we're looking at.
Well, with the island there too. I was just asking where you put the island there so they cross.
The island would be helpful. Yep, thank you.
In combination with the island. So, and that's what I was going to ask you. If you have any idea how many kids cross there and go to that park.
I do not know at this point, but that's something we could measure.
I know they used to play a lot of basketball out there, so I don't know. Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Spice.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Jeff, for your presentation. I would support that traffic island and crosswalk. I'm over here near 4th Street, and the 2 that are installed are, also a visual reminder whether the lights are flashing or not, that there's a legitimate crosswalk there. And that park also connects just off that photo to the Arizona trail that winds behind there. So I think that would be an effective place for that. Also a visual reminder. Thank you.
Commissioners, just want a quick go around the room. Do you support review of this project for traffic calming based on the criteria spreadsheet and the scoring? Maybe start with you, Commissioner Spice.
Yes, thank you. I would support again shy of a full, roundabout installation or other measures. That island would be a great addition right there. And also before you get to the light and follows right there, if you're traveling east on that toward the light, that might slow it down towards Fala.
Thank you. Commissioner Kuhn, are you in support of traffic calming, investigating traffic calming measures?
Yeah, yes, I am. We have a number of people who live out in Cheshire that I work with, so I hear about it a lot too.
Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, I'd support that. The striping plus some islands looked very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morley.
Yes, Madam Chair, I support it as well. We have a lot of bus riders who use those stops, particularly kids.
Okay. Thank you for that. So now I would like to go call for public comment, open up public comment. And I think, let's see. Oh, this is great. Teams now gives me hand raises numbered in order. That's a new thing. That's really great. So I'll start with Nick Vicente. Did I say your last name correctly?
Close enough. I've grown up with people butchering it. Thank you. I live right off of North Fremont. I live west of where North Roberta ties it. I have sent emails to some folks at the city. I've also communicated with the sergeant with traffic. Everybody's been very open. And at first, when I heard about this meeting, I was under the impression it was going to be over the greater stretch of Fremont, not focused on the park, which is a definite issue. Where I am at, where it funnels down to 2 lanes if you're heading westbound, as the road curves, there's no visible indicator that things are changing. Really, it looks like if you're westbound, you're now funneled and you have a faster route. And if you're heading eastbound, as soon as you hit that 4-lane spread, things start to accelerate quickly. To my knowledge, there's only one speed limit sign, and that is shortly after you turn westbound from 180. And once you make that turn at that stop sign, or stoplight, there is not another stop sign until you get up to Linwood. So that is almost a full mile, if not a little bit more, where there's no speed control, there's no signage. And even once we take into consideration the park is only about 1/3 of the way to that next stop sign, or sole stop sign, I should say. So hopefully if you do another study on this in the future, we can look farther west. There is a stop or a bus stop in North Peak and North Fremont, where I thought that might be a natural to have another stop sign, at least to slow people coming in and out of Linwood, as well as the strange area where we've got that almost service road that ties in at North Roberta. It parallels North Fremont from North Roberta down to West Wilson. So hopefully we get a look at the bigger picture of the entire street, because it's kind of designed like a racetrack all the way around the neighborhood if you look at it on Google Map app. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Sasha Stortz.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I guess I can. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you to the commission and to the city for addressing this issue. My family lives right off of Fremont on Sheila Drive, kind of entering onto Fremont. And, you know, this is a big issue for our neighborhood. And I'd say, you know, all of the residents are guilty of speeding down this road, ourselves included. It's a very wide straightaway, and it's designed in such a way for, you know, people to go fast. It's wider than Highway 180 for a residential neighborhood, which is just unreal to me. And there's a crosswalk to a playground that is used by kids every hour of every day. That is just an incredible neighborhood amenity, the only crosswalk across this 4-lane highway. is in a blind spot. So it really feels like there's a tragedy waiting to happen here. Yeah, I would love to be able to send my kid to play in the playground by herself as she grows up, but she's going to have to be a teenager before I feel comfortable with her crossing the road by herself, as it is with people speeding through the crosswalk and speeding down this area. I'm really heartened to see the ideas that the city has put forth on this, especially reducing the number of lanes of traffic. And I think any kind of traffic calming measures in here would be really very welcome. But ultimately, this is a huge opportunity to right size this road. I would love to see this as a single lane in each direction, you know, recognizing that we need bus pullouts, we need like a little extra space for Fala. It does get backed up at pickup time, but if we can have some protected bike lanes, some bigger sidewalks, recognizing that, you know, those are some of the main uses in this area. I love the idea of fewer lanes, of some kind of median or vegetation that could really limit the sort of line of sight to help people kind of psychologically slow down a little bit. You know, as the city is trying to pilot more innovative approaches for pedestrian and bike safety, this opportunity to reduce lanes here, I think, would be huge and could be a model to try out things that could be used in other places. And then ultimately, you know, again, having that high visibility intersection at the playground so that the crosswalk isn't in a blind spot. Yeah, thank you so much for the attention to our neighborhood. I think there's a lot of people here that really care, especially about that safe playground crossing, but about that whole stretch. So look forward to seeing it get smaller.
All right, thank you. Kyle Doherty.
Hello, Commission. Thanks for letting me comment at this time. I'm Sasha's spouse. I also live on West Sheila Drive, very near to that intersection by Cheshire Park. And yeah, I would point out that if you're traveling across Fremont in the direction west to east towards the park, it's really difficult for drivers to see pedestrians in that crosswalk at the corner of Brenda and Fremont. And so there has to be some solution to enhance visibility there. And perhaps consider an additional crosswalk north of there on Fremont. Could be a safer alternative. Generally, I support right sizing the street, reducing it to 2 lanes. I like a lot of the proposals in that earlier PowerPoint. But one thing I would ask that the Commission consider is how the bike lanes are treated during this process. Recently, throughout the city, there's been barriers installed to sort of protect cyclists around town, but I've noticed that they've introduced some issues where you're forced to run into a trash can, or it gets difficult for street sweepers to access those areas. So I think please consider just access for like street sweepers and stuff so that gravel doesn't pile up in the bike lanes. Other than that, thank you so much for focusing on North Fremont and helping our community to resolve these issues.
Thank you. Travis Woolley.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. Just wanted to start by saying thanks to the city and the commission for taking the time to look at this issue. Our family lives off of Roberta and Fremont, and we have young children, so we kind of see the issues that have been raised across the whole street from the park all the way to the necking down to the 2 lanes on Fremont, and really think this is an issue that we're really happy to see some work being done on, and just want to echo everybody else's comments. I agree with what everybody has said so far, and I also really like a lot of the options and things that have been laid out as potential solutions. I would say that we, as a family, feel like right sizing the road is probably the best route in the long run, and it will solve a lot of different issues on this road, and echo the kind of ideas around bike lanes, expanding that. or restriping the road or adding medians. And then I would only add, I would also, I think somebody made a comment earlier about, some kind of electronic crossing device and more crosswalks in general, I think would definitely help, in addition to kind of necking it down to a 2-lane road that's more appropriate for a neighborhood such as this, with a lot of kids going to that park. As Sasha said, there's kids at that park pretty much every hour of the day, and I've got young kids that I'd love to be able to send down and do that as well. So thank you for the ability to comment and look forward to participating more. Thanks.
Thank you. Audrey Cruz.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks Commission and everyone for taking our comments and for discussing this important topic. I am also a resident of Cheshire. I live on West Ann Lane in the townhomes. And like the other commenters have said, watch a parade of especially FALA students walk by to go to their gym classes at the park. And visit the park very often on dog walks and see how readily used that amenity of our neighborhood is. And just want to echo that I agree with the proposals that have been put forward. I really think right sizing is the right move here. I think this is an exceptional opportunity to be a pilot or be a model for what the rest of the city could look like. I am especially in support of the vegetated islands, or more like, I forget what they were called, but sort of vegetated strips within this boulevard to break things up. I think that also adds, can help slow traffic and sort of disrupt that really long line of sight that people have right now that allows them to speed or feel like they can speed quickly. I also just want to note that a lot of cats and dogs cross this road as well because they're in the neighborhood. And I think here in Flagstaff, we love our pets. And so I think that's another hazard we could be mitigating. Probably a lot of us saw recently the death of a child on 180. And I know that's a different situation, but I think we need to head this off before that happens. And, seeing that there are 9 incidences already that were luckily rather minor is important. And I don't want this to be an accident like that waiting to happen. And finally, before the pandemic hit, we had been brainstorming about what we could do to make this area more visual. In terms of the crosswalk, in terms of slowing traffic. And so I just wanted to put this out there as an additional idea. We chatted a little bit with the FALA art teachers about potentially adding artistic enhancements to the crosswalk, making it painted, adding a lot of color, making it very visually obvious that there's a crosswalk there. So maybe this is an addition to the islands or the roundabout. But I think there's a lot of interest from certainly the FALA art teachers, and I would be happy as a citizen volunteer to help kind of move that project ahead in coordination with the city and whoever paints the streets, for that to be something that also gives our community some art enhancement. And I know the sustainability department has grants for that kind of thing, but that could be a really neat addition to this neighborhood. As well as that art piece. So thanks. I support your right sizing measures, especially reducing lanes and keeping those bike lanes and sidewalks really available for all the bike and ped traffic. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Any other members for public comment? Final call, public comment. Right. Kyle Doherty, I still see your hand up. I think that's from your comment below, previous. So if you could take your hand down, that'd be helpful for me so I don't lose track. All right, thank you. Okay, hearing none, let's go into final discussion, commissioner discussion. What's great here is we have an opportunity to do something with striping. Which is definitely a more affordable option try things out, I guess, or to make these changes. I really like the idea of adjusting striping to buffer a bike lane, or taking lanes to do a two-way left turn lane in the center. I wondered if you could even do a buffer between the face of curb and where the bike lane is currently. That becomes a buffer for the sidewalk. Then you have a bike lane, then you have another buffer. I think there's basically just saying there might be some strategies here with striping that we could pursue that could be pretty effective. And there is not, from what I'm hearing, there's not a need for 4 lanes. 2 lanes would be adequate. I think that crosswalk, Jeff, do you know if it's high vis crosswalk, and if there's the signage that has the symbols for crossing at that location?
Yeah, it is a high visibility crosswalk. That's all we do, or high visibility crossing. So there's a high visibility crosswalk. I don't remember exactly what signage is out there. We don't typically put ped warning signs up at intersections, so it probably does not have pedestrian warning signs. But there may be some pedestrian warning signs in advance. I don't remember exactly what's out there.
And I also heard some support for perhaps an island at that location. That could be something that's tried through candlesticks. Anyway, those are just ideas. I think this goes into that bigger conversation about budget available to do these things, and being able to prioritize those. Commissioner Morley, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually really excited about the opportunity on this one, whereas I feel like most traffic calming we deal with, we're working in a very constrained right of way. And here we have an opportunity, I think, to do something great. I think council's looking for big wins in bike ped and right sizing roads, et cetera. And so I would love to see us actually do almost like a mini corridor plan of something abbreviated, but I think the community wants to be involved. The FALA art teachers want to be involved. And I think really drawing up a plan for what this could look like and make it a big community win, show what's possible in an area that's easy, right? Instead of a long Butler, let's do an easy one that we could try. I think there are funding sources we could explore for this. I think that the Beautification Commission might actually be very interested. I hear they have some surplus funds over in beautification, and they might be interested in doing things like making the medians beautiful with landscaping, and placemaking things that could occur on this stretch. I also think it's ripe for other grant opportunities that could happen with just the way you're seeing grants come out related to transportation and wanting great bike ped infrastructure and looking at things like road diets. I think that if we're willing to, it's not an immediate solution, and maybe there's something cheap we can do in the short term, but I think actually having like a mini master plan of the road and then seeking funding for it could be a huge win for this community and get council the wins they're looking for, and get the neighborhood the traffic calming that they need. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Morley. Other commissioners would like to weigh in on that suggested direction? Should be a mini master plan, maybe some short-term mitigation. Go ahead, Commissioner Spice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's potential for a great community involvement there with the enthusiasm at FALA. And also this maybe easy of restriping that for that center left turn lane both ways to not make that a 4 lane. I don't know how that would maybe affect the buses and access to follow there, but as Ms. Morley mentions, that's a great community opportunity there. So I would support a plan, and also mention the pedestrian island crosswalk there at the park. Thank you.
So I'm hearing in the short term, conversion of those lanes to two-way left turn or buffered bike lanes, and then more of a long-term mini master plan. Any other commissioner comments to that?
You know, Madam Chairman, let Jeff come back with some ideas, from some designs. Like Kate said, that's a great idea. And we don't have to spend a lot of money with the community helping.
Commissioner Kraft, does that sound like a good path forward to you?
Yes, it does.
Excellent. All right, Jeff, any other questions for us or things that you want to talk about on this one?
No, I think we have some things to work on in the more immediate future. I did pull up this map, and so we have been focusing on this area. You heard again tonight, there's some concern down in maybe this area, which is that follow-up count. So we'll probably focus up here and take some counts down here for some of these immediate things. Longer term, I'll need to huddle with the planning staff and see what kind of resources they have available for corridor studies or mini corridor studies, or and some kind of planning study for the corridor. That's going to be beyond what I can do in every other month. So I will work with other staff and see what kind of resources and availability we have to work on something like that. But it does sounds really neat. And yeah, I'll get back to you all on what is possible. But short term, yeah, we've got some ideas here. So thank you. Good discussion.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it is exciting to have the possibility of a pilot project. And then the participation of community members and FALA could be really fun. All right. Thank you, commissioners, for discussion on that item. I think with that, we will close out item 2 of our agenda and move into item 3, old business. This one's going to be short because there isn't any. So moving into item 4, concluding general business, starting with the reports from our BAC and PAC. And Martin, if you're joining us, do you have any updates that you would like to share on the activities of BAC and PAC?
I am here, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just a few quick things. The week before last, we had a joint meeting between the BAC and PAC, which has become, which we've done now for 2 Januaries in a row. So there's an interest with the 2 committees in making that kind of an annual tradition and having a combined meeting every January. We do have our next round of meetings for February start tomorrow with the Bike Advisory Committee, and then next week with Pedestrian Advisory Committee. For Bike Advisory Committee tomorrow, we're looking at a lot of details for bikeways plan. So we're trying to kind of wrap up discussion, especially within the context of what we want to work on the next 5 years and what we're requesting for funding in the city's capital plan for the next couple of years, and then overall the next 5 years. So we're really getting down to the level of detailed discussion on what projects should go first and how we should spend the funding that we have available for bikeways. And I think the pedestrians will talk about something very similar. They actually have an interest in bikeways as well. These things aren't always entirely separable, so it's appropriate for them to talk about it. Also for Pedestrian Advisory Committee, we will start talking about renewal of the city's walk-friendly community status, which has been, I think, at least a few years. It might be as much as 5 years since we've gotten that renewed. So it'll be interesting with the work that we've done over the last couple of years if we can move from bronze status up to silver or gold. So we'll start talking about that. We do have 1 vacancy on the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and 1 vacancy on the Bike Advisory Committee. I know we have applications for Bike Advisory, but we don't currently have applications for Pedestrian Advisory Committee, at least as far as I could tell. So we'll probably at your next commission meeting in 2 months, we'll have more information and potentially some appointments.
Excellent.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Commissioners, any questions for Martin? All right. Hearing none, move to item 4B, informational items 2 from commissioners and staff, starting with commissioner discussion. Commissioner Morley.
Our big thing going on right now is Flagstaff in motion. The 5-year plan is continuing to move along. It could be of interest to the commission to consider whether or not they want to hear an update or weigh in on any recommendations at the April meeting. I think would be good timing for that. Other than that, we're excited about all the new grants coming out and the new infrastructure bill, and we're looking forward to trying to get some things done over at Mountain Line with that new funding.
Right. Commissioner Kuhn.
Actually, I don't have a lot to report. So, you know, we're flying through. So
It's true. All right, thank you. Commissioner Spice.
Thank you. I don't have any comments currently on that topic.
Okay. Commissioner Kraft.
I don't have any information items at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I've got a couple of things. First one is there are some applications for Transportation Commission. These are going in front of City Council, I believe mid-February, in a couple of weeks. I'll keep an eye out on the agenda to see when those might move forward. Actually, we have Councilmember McCarthy here. Councilmember, do you know when those might be moving forward?
Actually, I don't.
Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon, absolutely.
All right, and then wanted to let you all know that, you know, Metro Plan is working on the update regional transportation plan, and this effort is just beginning. They have started a survey. It's called Striding Forward. So if you just go check out Metro Plan's website, get more information, please stay engaged. All right, moving on to item B2. This is, thanks, Jeff. Appointments are February 15th for TC. So, moving on to item B2, this is the Lone Tree Overpass special meeting feedback. And I wanted to have a conversation with my fellow commissioners about how that meeting went. It was long. It was 4.5, 5 hours long. And we included PAC, BAC, Sustainability Commission, Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. And I wanted to get some feedback on how that went. And I'll start just to kind of get the conversation moving. And, you know, I realized that what that meeting was almost more of a public forum. It almost was more like a public meeting and less about a commission meeting where we had a lot of dialogue and conversation. And that really became clear to me as I was preparing to go in front of City Council and provide remarks and try to take the commission's comments and report back to council. And I found that it was predominantly comments received by the public, which was, I consider that to be a huge success. But I actually felt, in reflecting back on it, that I didn't feel like we had enough time as a commission to really discuss things before closing things out and making that recommendation, or not necessarily a recommendation, but going in front of council with comments. So that's kind of where I was coming from, but I would really love to hear from other commissioners your thoughts about about how that went. Did it work? What could have been better? Go ahead, Commissioner Kraft.
That was a really long meeting. It's kind of funny, but it's also, I personally don't have the stamina for meetings that long at this point because of health issues. And I consider the schedule to be an agreement as to how long the meeting's going to be. And when it goes that far over, I think something didn't work. And I'm not totally sure how to change it when you have that much public input, but I felt like a lot of the public input was from the same special interest group that was there in mass, and a lot of it was repetitious, and that could have been controlled perhaps somehow. But I also felt that the entire meeting time was taken up with a presentation that was far too detailed about one intersection when I thought they could have done the entire project in half that time, in a way that was sort of human accessible. So that was very difficult to go through. I mean, I can see you had also asked about having the committees involved. In this case, it seemed like appropriate, but in general, I don't want to meet with the committees as a commission. I think the system is designed for them to do their work and for that to flow to us in an abbreviated form. So in general, I don't necessarily want to have meetings with them, especially where they're voicing their opinions individually or whatever. I guess they sort of became the public in that case, but in terms of for future reference, I know we've been invited to attend their meetings as individuals. That seems appropriate, but in terms of functioning as our organizations, I would rather not put them all together. I mean, one thing I'm curious about, maybe it's a question for Jeff. I think I may have asked this before. I don't remember, but it is like we only meet every other month, but we have every 2 weeks worth of stuff to do. Why do we only meet every other month? And what's the means of changing that? Is that in our charter, or it just seems weird that we would have what we have going on and only meet every other month. So I'd be curious for an answer to that question.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. I appreciate your honesty and directness about that. And Jeff, I'll let you answer about the.
Thank you.
Charter.
Sure. So the way our charter is written is it says we meet at least every other month. And traditionally, the January month was a problem because the first week of January is always tough coming out of break, and July was always a problem. So even months made sense for every other month. There's no reason we can't meet when we have heavy workload like we did in January. We met 1.5 times. I can still laugh. So that was a special meeting in January that was out of sequence, and we can certainly have a special one in March or any other month we want to have. But the meeting every month is really hard for staff to actually make progress. And we could just, have one item in January and then you wouldn't see it again until March or April or whenever it may be. We could certainly spread them out, but it's hard for us to keep up with every month meetings. I know BAC and PAC are doing that, and we've actually talked a little bit internally about whether we need to back off of that a bit as well, because it just becomes a really big workload on staff to meet that frequently if we don't need to. And we've been outside of those recent couple of issues, we've been doing okay for 2 hours every other month for the most part. But yeah, we can meet more. If there's things that we need to do, we definitely can throw an extra meeting in on those odd numbered months. There's nothing against that. I think that probably answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. I remember it now. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Right. Commissioner Kuhn.
You know, going back to, I've been involved with a lot of things over the years with my job. And we're in a pandemic. I think that was the wrong forum to do that in. I really thought we should have met, and we can't, in live, and had the different areas together, and then voice as a voice instead of individual. It became, and in certain ones you can say, hey, you've represented this already. We don't need a request, and you're saying the same thing. It becomes very hard virtually, because you don't know if there's a group or the part of that. So, and it's hard right now. How do we do that? We're being in the middle of COVID. We've run big forums, and it's been a few years since we shut down schools. It reminded the public is very interested in that. It has a lot of impact on the neighborhood. It has impact on everything. So, people want to voice what they're saying, but sometimes it's easier in public to do that in person and say, hey, you just said the exact same thing. Just reiterate and say, that is exactly what I wanted. And like I say, that's on a virtual platform, it's very tough. And the length of the meeting got a little long, but I've been a lot of meetings that long, so you lose your focus and attention after so long.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn. Commissioner Spice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to echo the sentiments, I was just curious if there was a time limit for participants, or a stopwatch that people would know ahead of time, to limit the extensive dialogue, perhaps. Just curious. Thank you.
And Commissioner Spice, I think that's one area I could have handled better. I was so focused on making sure to have a dialogue that I didn't. Usually public comment is limited to 3 minutes, and I did not set a 3-minute time limit to that because it was presented as more of a dialogue. And I think in retrospect, and then also kind of piggybacking on Commissioner Kuhn's comments about, the repetitiveness of, the same comments, being able to move that on. It is pretty difficult in the virtual format, but that is absolutely a great recommendation, a great point to make, and one that I think is important for moving forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and you do exceptional work in your role, so thank you.
Right, Commissioner Morley.
Yeah, thank you. I may have a little different perspective from my other commissioners. I thought the meeting went well. Yes, it was long, but I think it's our duty as a commission to take the time to hear from the public and let them weigh in. I think if we wanted to be stricter on 3 minutes, I think that's fine, but I didn't actually get the impression people were making incredibly long comments. It just was that there were a lot. I will note, I think the presentation itself was almost 2 hours. And I think that I think that we as commissioners can be expected to do some due diligence in advance of the meeting, and we could have cut that down to some key resident points that we wanted feedback on and have asked us to do reading or look at materials in advance. I think that you do a really good job of organizing meetings. And I think occasionally they may just go long. As far as I know we have had a couple of really long ones recently. I think we could look at additional meetings. I would be fine with that. I think the other thing we could have a good discussion about, if we were going to talk about that, is what do we want to come to the commission, and what do we want to delegate to staff? I think consistently we've really liked the matrix tool that we used several times tonight. And consistently, the commission agrees with it. Would we want to just set a policy that says if it meets these standards, then yes, staff, please, go do a traffic calming and not have to debate it every time. So I think there's some of those things we could do. But I actually thought the meeting was good. I appreciate the engagement of the public. And I wish we had more time to talk as a commission But I think everyone was tired by the end, but I still feel like good outcomes came from it. I also do like meeting with our, I mean, maybe there's other ways to structure it in joint commission meetings. I think there are things where we overlap, and it's nice to hear what other groups and commissions say so that there's not totally competing direction going or viewpoints might change. We could have, with like Bike Ped Commission, we could get more clear in a process about recommendations from Bike Ped, since they really are giving us recommendations and have had a more formal process for that. However, the timing matters too, because if you need to go to all the commissions to get us a recommendation so that we know, I think we wouldn't have met the schedule that the city was hoping for. So, I mean, overall, I think it, under the conditions and the circumstances, I think it went great. And I'm glad that Jeff can still laugh about the half meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Morley. Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you. Just to put it in perspective, the meeting that the city council focused on this, and I think we had like 2 big items that night. Counting our executive session was 11 hours. So 4 hours didn't seem too bad to me. My comment about the meeting is that it seemed like there was a lot of comments about, oh, we need to make it better for pedestrians and we need to make it better for bicycles. And I think there's agreement on that on council, strong agreement from me and everyone else. But there was very little specifics of, you know, what we should do or what they don't like. It was just more, you know, you got to make it better for pedestrians and better for bicycles. And short of, you know, just not making it a car bridge, which the car bridge is what got approved by the voters, I'd still be interested in specific ideas, because this will come back to council again. So the bottom line is, please give us constructive ideas of how to make it better, as opposed to posturing about, you know, what your philosophical bent is. And I mean that affectionately and constructively. I'm basically trying to get across, you know, as a council person, well, what can we do specifically? And we will want to make it better if we can. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
And I think one important thing to note is that what was presented to council and encouraged by the majority of council was not something that the Transportation Commission discussed, which was the different option, the 5-lane option. So it's my understanding, Councilmember McCarthy, that was the recommendation for moving forward. So I feel that the decision and directive has been made by council. So I'm wondering if there is more room for conversation from commission.
Well, council decided on, if I remember correctly, it was option 5. But we also agreed to look at a bridge over Butler, which my guess will turn out to be impractical for several reasons, including cost. And then there's also going to be further discussion about possible double left turn lanes. But as I mentioned in the FMPO, you know, the Metro Plan meeting earlier today, we probably need a little bit more discussion on how does a bicycle get through this intersection. And I don't know if that's something that comes from staff or Metro Plan will suggest or whatever, but there will be more discussion on it. But as far as like the separated right turn lanes, I forget the official name for them.
Channelized rights?
Yeah, I think channelized rights, the majority, and this isn't necessarily my opinion, I'm just telling you the opinion of council, was that they did not like channelized rights. And I think the main reason is that the pedestrians have to walk farther. On the other hand, their trip across the street can be broken up because they only have to go across one lane, and then they have a safe place to stand and wait to go across less lanes when the light turns green. So regardless of the pros and cons of it, I think channelized rights are off the table at this point. But double left turn lanes, and I won't go into the reasons, the pros and cons of those, unless you want me to, but those are still on the table, the way I read the council. Anyway, and it will come back to council again. And, you know, if you have any more questions, let me know. Martin Hentz made some good comments about the bridge and reasons that it probably is impractical. But council did agree to have staff at least take a quickie look at it to, you know, a ballpark price. I mean, are we talking 1 million or 4 million or whatever? Anyway, I'll leave it at that unless you have more questions. I'm here.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. And I know I promised my commissioners we would end here and right on time in 13 minutes. So just a few more minutes, but I do want to share. And then I see Councilmember Shimoni. So you're next. Just a moment here. I got to sit in on a meeting with city staff yesterday and the city of Boulder. And it was great. Learned a lot. And the purpose of that meeting was trying to understand some of the things that they're doing. They have incorporated channelized rights in certain conditions in their community with some key feedback about what works on those and what doesn't work on those. And so it was very informative. And, you know, I think, you know, if there is an opportunity to open up that conversation again, great. You know, however, I do understand that council's made a recommendation. So Councilmember Shimoni and then Commissioner Kraft.
Chair Lead, are you sure you want to call me as you're running out of time? You know I can speak for a long time. I'm just kidding. I'll be quick. Hi, everybody. Great to be with you all. I was unable to tune in earlier, but I got in as soon as I could. And I just wanted to tune in for this last part of the discussion that you have today. Just wanted to comment, you know, yes, it was a long meeting, and welcome to the work of government, right? This is how public engagement looks. It's clunky, it's long, but, you know, I think the lack of option 5 at that meeting that you all had is part of the issue as to why you had such a long meeting as well. And I think the beautiful outcome of that frustrating, engaging meeting was that option 5 was placed on the agenda for council. So I'm extremely grateful for you all going through that process with the public. I heard very clear from the commissioners and the public that this project is too big. I don't know of any special interest group that's like, you know, leading this. I think I've heard from community groups all across the city and vested parties and individuals. I think this is a hot topic, and the work that you all are doing is a hot topic in the community. And get ready, buckle up, but it's going to be good, you know, and we're going through change, and it's not easy. So next steps, as Councilmember McCarthy said, we did propose, council did move forward with 5A, I think is what it's being called, which is option 5, and then 5B, which is a double left turn coming south off of Lone Tree, and then another double left turn, I think heading south going from the east to the west on Butler. And council chose not to bring it back to the commissions and the committees. So commissioners and those in listening, please do engage in the process. We want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your feedback. I personally wanted it to go back to you all, but there was not an appetite for that because of how long this has taken as it is. But I saw a lot of value in the joint meeting that you all had, and encourage you to keep doing that when it's appropriate. Okay, and then lastly, you know, I'm hoping that we're going to address process at some point of our capital improvement projects. I'm talking with our city manager about this today, not today literally, but in this real time. And then the double left, commissioners, I want you to keep in mind, and staff, you know, heading south from the bridge, what's the added cost? Because it's going to add width to the bridge. So I'm really hoping that is part of the conversation to council when that comes back around. The added cost is going to be, I believe, significant. And then Chair Lead, to your comment about the meeting with Boulder, I was also in attendance. I had a great experience in that meeting because I was very impressed to hear that Boulder is concerned about channelized rights, and especially in areas where there's going to be a lot of pedestrian use, and that they felt that those were dangerous for pedestrians is one of the key takeaways I heard. So maybe we can talk more about that with this commission, but thank you for letting me speak and good discussion today.
Commissioner Kraft.
I'm sorry in advance, but having been involved in the Transportation Tax Commission prior that brought these projects forward, just hearing Jim say it was a road bridge. It was a full road bridge that included pedestrian and bike lanes all the way back to JW Powell. So that was the intention, if that's what I heard you say.
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with you. I completely support full bike lanes and pedestrians on this route. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Thanks. And one thing I just wanted to share from my perspective as a member of the public, the newspaper article about the what the council was doing going forward said almost nothing. And so if there's a way to get the word out better, that would be helpful. I mean, you're talking about 5 and 5A and 2 left turns. I didn't see anything in there. It just said they agreed to go forward.
Is that the city's press release, Nick?
I think it was the same as that. Yeah.
Okay.
It was very generic. So I'm kind of lost about where things are now.
Thank you for that.
Anyway, thanks.
Yep. And I think, Councilmember Shimoni, I don't know if I heard consensus from the entire Transportation Commission about a comment related to it being too big. I think I summarized the commissioner's comments in the council presentation and then summarize the comments from the committee members and other members of the public separately. But I don't recall that would be something that would need to be revisited at the commission. I'm not sure about that. Just as a clarification, but there was absolutely much excitement about bike and ped and the infrastructure for those facilities. Anyway, 554, final call on that topic. All right.
Car 54, where are you?
Final call. All right. So our next regular meeting, this is item 4C. This is scheduled for April 6th. And there is a list of tentative agenda items. And I think that's something that I can work with you, Jeff, on. Maybe there's a way to combine some of these traffic calming neighborhood speeding issues together. We'll see, to streamline things. And Commissioner Morley, were you wanting with Mountain Line? Were you looking to have time set aside in that April 6th meeting?
I think we would be interested in presenting and hearing feedback from the commission, but if it's a full agenda and the commission isn't interested, we can use other forums to do it.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, with that, we are at the end of our agenda, and is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. All right. With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for spending your afternoon, evening with us. Be safe. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.